Good morning, everyone. With that, I'll take your
Mike.
questions. Good morning.
Now that Earl Thomas is a free agent, could you discuss what the club's level of interest would be in pursuing him and considering him for this team?
Well, actually, the conversations, I've been involved with. We had a chance to have a thorough, personnel meeting just 2 days ago, and we're very confident in where we are as far as the 80-man roster. So, as far as any prospect that's available, those are more conversations for Jerry, Steven, and Will McClay, as far as looking at that situation. So I have nothing really to report.
Have you had any conversations with him since, or Steven or Jerry, since he has been a free agent?
I've talked to Will about it. So yeah, I mean, we talk about we read the news too. So you may not think we read your guys' articles and stay on top of things. So yeah, we look at every situation. It's player acquisition is 365 days a year.
How do you assess where you are at safety right now when you look at your starters and your depth and how this is playing out in camp?
I like the way the guys are competing, and we're also trying to get through different personnel groups. We're spending an enormous amount of time on situational offense and defense. So with that, different groupings and those types of things. So I mean, at some point, at the end of this week and starting into next week, we need to start formulating. Exactly which direction we're going as we start to prepare. We'll start after Monday's practice next week, preparing for the Rams. So, but just because of the way this training camp is laid up, we are working a ton on situations. But I like what Xavier, Ha and all those guys, the way they're performing and just getting the communications of such a big part of training camp. Growth and progress, and I think our guys have all done a good job with it.
Can you talk about how you play your safeties, or are they interchangeable, or is there one like Low and High, and Darian Thomas can play different than Xavier?
The starting point is our safeties are interchangeable. I mean that's the the philosophical approach with our defense and how it is installed.
Like, as you guys are putting together a roster, how do you factor in chemistry, character, all those things when you're adding players to a team?
Well, I mean, everything's looked at, and at the end of the day, I think the most important question you needed to ask is, how does the player fit into the locker room? Because to me, that's usually a huge determining factor on if it happens or doesn't happen too. So, and just like anything in this business, there has to be a mutual understanding and to bring those things together. So at the end of the day, as the head coach, my focus is on our current locker room.
Mike, can you give us injury updates on guys like Earl Collins, Tyron Smith, Sean Lee?
All three of those guys are doing well. I think you're going to see them start working into maybe some individual drill work. So, but I don't have any serious long-time concerns for the group.
Amari Cooper mentioned to us yesterday that he thinks one place Dak Prescott's game has evolved since last year is in decision-making. I know you weren't here last year, but from the film you've studied, how do you gauge where Dak is at in his decision-making?
Just having a chance to you look through all the video when you come into a new situation, and you have your opinions on areas of improvement for every player. But the most important thing is to get it to fit the direction that you're going. And I would say Dak has total command of our offense right now. I think he's very comfortable in everything we're asking him to do, and I think he's playing at a very high level. You're seeing those 2 or 3 throws of practice that you like to see from your starter, and so yeah, I think he's having a very good camp as far as decision making is concerned.
past years here, they would, some of the veteran players that you mentioned earlier, like Lee and Tyron Smith, they would kind of manage them and set them out of certain practices, not pushing them too much. I know they have legit injuries now, but what is your general philosophy on that? Is it different in your first year since you haven't had an off season and you haven't worked with these guys? You want to see them more, or just about managing guys who have an injury history in camp?
I mean, that's a very insightful question. I think the first thing is obvious. This is a different year, just I think for everybody in the NFL. I think for our particular situation, being new here, even brings an added angst to dealing with every particular player, because every player has history. We have an understanding of how things were ran here in the past, and more particularly how each practice in the past was weighted, how every practice that we have currently is weighted. So you're using those numbers for comparables, and so there's a lot of information, a lot of resources to have to make a analysis on everything that we do. So, but in theory, if players can go, they go. I mean, there's everything we do is based on the amount of time on the field. The recovery factor is also part of the plan. But we don't rest players just to rest players. There's some mathematics behind all those types of decisions.
Outside of Rich and Jalen, how are your backup linebackers looking so far in camp?
They look good. A lot of versatility there. I think you can see not only what they're doing on defense, but I think all four of those guys. You can see the impact that they're gonna have competing for special teams. So I really like that inside linebacker group. I mean, Leighton and Jalen are really look really good, and very comfortable in the new things that we're asking them to do, and so they both play and operate with such great command out there. So, but that's a group that has a lot of depth.
What has rookie Francis Bernard showed you in that group?
Well, I'll tell you, he's doing a heck of a job, and the thing that jumps out to you, and it really started during the rookie work there in the strength conditioning phase, is his understanding. I mean, it's enlightening when you see a rookie that comes in to your program, especially coming out of a virtual, the virtual phase that we went through from the draft till the time that we were able to get together with those guys. He had a really good understanding of the defense. I mean, his ability to communicate and make checks in the practices right away stood out. So I give him a ton of credit, and just his understanding and comfort. Had a big interception in one of the 2-minute drills, so he's doing a really nice job.
Mike, how has the absence of Jordan Lewis affected the opportunities and the reps that your young rookie corners that you drafted are getting in practice?
Well, it's definitely, anytime you have injuries, it does create opportunities for others. But Jordan's having a heck of a camp. So just understanding his history, he'll be fighting to get back here sooner than later. But I really like the way he was performing. But yes, the younger guys are getting more reps, and at the end of the day, we're kind of juggling the balls I've already spoke on, is trying to get, you're evaluating your personnel, but you're also trying to, utilize the practice time to put our players in as many different situations as we possibly can. So, hopefully we can get that balanced out.
How do you gauge on that? You're trying to put 53 together, especially the veterans versus a young kid who wants.
Yeah, this year clearly that's the biggest challenge. I think you've said it. I mean, it's going to be a huge challenge. I think everybody's going through it because just the limited time, and you don't have the the preseason games, because that's really where you're able to really put those young guys out there and cut them loose. So I mean, how do you balance that in your practice environment? I mean, that's the question, and that we all have to answer and look into. So it's definitely a challenge for the young guys, and in a lot of ways they are swimming upstream.
A lot of teams will play music prominently during their training camp practices. aside from the break period, there's not a lot of music being played here. Is that it for you, dating back to your time in Green Bay, or is that particular to this Cowboys season?
I think there's a place for music. You know, I think even more so than any year that I've coached in this league. This is probably a year for not very much music. I mean, we're, right now, looks like we're going to be playing our first game with no fans. So I think that what I've always done is you try to, keep your training environment as close to the game situation as possible. I mean, the influx of music for me in the practices that I've had in the past, there's a purpose for it. So when the offense is playing on the road, we'll have music during their periods, for communication, the communication challenge and things like that. So, but we play music during the TV timeouts. So there's two or three of those of practice. But I think music's great, but I think it needs to be at the appropriate time.
Do you pick the music when it's played?
Can't you tell? I mean, that's my iPod or whatever they call it. Playlist. Yeah, there you go.
Mike, you obviously had a long background with Joe Philbin. What is it about Joe that you wanted to bring him here and get with these offensive linemen?
Well, number one, I think the world of Joe, and I just have such great respect for him as a coach. And I think, like anything, we both had a chance to step away from the game. Joe worked as a consultant in the league office, and worked with focus on officiating and different things like that. So I think stepping away, and I think just that him having an opportunity to coach the offensive line and is really a huge strength for us here at the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm glad he's joined our staff, and he does such a great job, and he's got an excellent young coach, Jeff Blasco. So I think those two are paired that our offensive linemen are really enjoying, and they're very well coached, and they go about it the right way. So very fortunate to have both those guys.
Mike, you mentioned playing in a quiet stadium. How will you go about protecting your signal calling on both sides of the ball?
Protect the signal calling?
Yes, sir.
It's really, I look at that. We refer to that as mannerisms. When you get into offense, defense, and special teams, there's an analysis that's been going on in the game of football for decades. And the traditional game analysis is you have your self scout and you have your opponent, as far as how you line up, what your tendencies are, and things like that. We take the same approach in what we refer to as mannerisms. So there's an offensive mannerism breakdown of the opponent, but also self scout, and no different for the defense. So that's really part of the game. It's part of the regulation of the analysis and evaluation of our coaching staff. Obviously, the quarterbacks are very, very involved in it. So we're very in tune with what signals we're using. We use the TV copies as part of all of our breakdowns. That the TV coverage has been incredible for the last decade. So you're so much that you get off of a TV copy. So we're looking at ourselves probably more than we're looking at the opponent when it comes to that part of it. So it's part of the game, and so the communication out there is going to be a little different this year, and it'll be. I'm curious to see how it's going to unfold, with the fans, and then you get into some stadiums maybe 25%, 50%. So, that's a little bit of a moving target.
Are you ready to proceed with Connor Williams as your Week 1 left guard? Is that something that you feel is cemented here, less than 3 weeks away from the start of the season?
Yes, he's doing a heck of a job. I mean, just really coming off the injury, I think we have to be smart, as we get into this practice today and tomorrow is what I would call a stress point of our training camp. So we're very conscientious of that, and especially any player that's coming off of an injury. So once again, there's a lot of mathematics that goes into these opinions and decisions of how you practice your team, and with Connor's rehab and everything he's gone through, that'll be taken into account of how we practice him and some of the others. But I think he's doing a heck of a job. I'm very impressed with Connor Williams.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you. Good?